Alright, so I have a bike loaded up on a truck right now. This bike's not too heavy for what it is, for a cruiser-ish style bike. It's actually pretty light. It's probably one of the lightest. So this is how I have my ramp set up. So both of these are 2x8s, I believe, and you buy the little 2x8 ramp adapter thing. So this is what costs money, and I guess the 2x8s too, and bolted up. So this one is just the 2x8 only. Right, this is what I'm walking on. Instead of using like a step stool, don't work that good. I'd rather use this. It's much better because you always stay level with the bike, just like you are on the ground. And this other side is also a 2x8, but I put some 4x1s, so kind of make it into like it's not an I-beam because the bottom is flat, so it's more like a channel, the shape of a channel. And you look on the side here, it's actually how it's narrower, then it gets thicker because I actually cut this off. Because if I left this full width here, the bike will actually get hung up right here. As it transition from flat surface up here to the downhill slope, this part is like sort of like the high point, so it actually will catch the bike. So I shaved it off, and this is enough. This is probably, let's see, probably 20 inches or so. I shaved off. Another thing I did was I took some screws. I think these are at least half-inch screws, maybe a little bit longer than half-inch. With the hex head, you don't want to use like a Phillips head or anything that's rounded. If it's rounded, it'll be too smooth because this is a hex head, so it gives you a lot of grip. So the tires will get on here, and it actually gives you traction. And this works really good, even if it's wet, it will still grip really well. So I've had before I did this, I had bikes just slide down this ramp even though it's dry. The wood, because the bike's heavy and it's slide down. I'm like, oh shit! I can't remember if I ever dropped a bike before I got these things. I might have, but anyways. So this is my do-it-yourself, homemade ramp, and this works really well. So this is the length on this is I believe the length is an 8-footer. If you go longer, the better. I wouldn't get a 6-foot because the 6-foot makes the ramp, the angle of the ramp, too steep, and it makes it even harder. So the longer it is, the less steep the angle is, so it'd be easier. So this is 8 feet. If you get away with, like a 10-foot or even more, because this bed I have here, this is a 6-foot bed. So with the tailgate down, and I put these ramps, put this ramps up on the truck bed, it barely overhangs the tailgate just a bit, so which is fine. But let's say, for example, if you had an 8-foot bed, then you get away with like a 10-foot, that way you get even less of a steep angle, so it's even easier to go up and down. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to basically unload it yourself, with one person. So obviously it's still strapped up here, right? It's still strapped on both sides of the handlebars. I already unstrapped everything else. I have the kickstand down. So got the kickstand down, right? So obviously it's still pretty much upright, standing upright. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take off this, loosen up the straps and let it go back on its on the kickstand. And I'm gonna have it in first gear, and obviously the engine is gonna be off. First gear, I'm gonna hold in the clutch, so that way it could roll backwards. As I'm going down, I'm gonna use the clutch. I'm gonna feather the clutch. I'm gonna use the clutch to basically hold the bike like as if it was using brakes, because if you just use the front brakes, for example, only, because you're going downhill backwards, the front brake, if you use that alone, it won't hold very well. Chances are it might slide, especially if it's a heavy bike. You won't be able to hold it very well. But if you use the clutch, it holds the back wheel as it rolls downhill backwards, and the back wheel is basically towards the front, right? It's going forward, going that direction, so the back wheel is the front. So it basically it brakes better than using the front brake as a rear, basically, essentially. Okay. Let's see what else. yeah, so that's how I'm gonna do it. Let's see, where should I put this camera to, so that way that I can see how I'm doing this without it being in my way. Let me set it so that way it is maybe facing backwards, like so. Let's see. It's kind of far. Yes, it's hard to see anything. Maybe back like this might be okay. Let's see. Adjust this thing up a little bit. Put this thing on the roof. Let's see. Let's fit this thing on the roof. It's better. You know, I'm trying to get a better view here. I can see what I'm doing. Let's see. Something like that, I guess. So yeah, so that way you guys can see my my clutch hand, you know, operating the clutch hand. Okay. Okay, so side stands down, kick stands down. I'm gonna release the throttle side first, so that way I lean towards the clutch side. Okay, release that first. Lean towards the clutch side, and it's gonna lean on the on the kickstand. And once it does that, you can just, you know, let this go. Okay, so from there, get off the bike. Make sure your ramps are in line with the bike, you know, parallel with the bike, right behind it. Basically perfectly in line. So I'm in first or not. Okay, so I am in first. Wait a minute. Not in first. Okay, now I'm in first. Now I'm in first. So I just let it roll back, and the gear held the bike. So actually, I might move my. Oops. Too late. Can't do it now. I move my ramp over so I could walk down it a little better. That's fine. So now I'm going down. I'm just basically releasing the clutch a little bit. Releasing the clutch a little bit, feathering it. This is where, if you didn't cut those the 4x1s on the ramp, this is where it would get hung up down here. Where you see my feet, it gets hung up on the bike right there. And also those channels, it actually it's basically acts as a channel to help guide the back wheel, so that way it doesn't the back wheel, you know, just in case if your bike's not coming down straight, the back wheel doesn't just roll off the ramp. So basically, I just back it up slowly. This is a heavy bike. The handlebar is kind of high. I'm not used to handlebar being this high, so it's kind of awkward. That's how you drop bikes. I think it's freaking heavy. I haven't handled a bike this heavy in over a year. Actually, my XSR wasn't this heavy. The last time I handled a bike this heavy was over 2 years actually. Slowly at a time, I'm actually even kind of leaning my body against the bike. Because the bike's not completely upright, it's actually kind of leaning towards me a little bit. So now my feet's on the ground, so it's much more stable. Now I can have a lot more control. Bring it down. Oh shit! Almost dropped it there. Again, this is kind of awkward. I haven't handled a heavy bike in a couple of years. And I'm a lightweight, you know, I'm only 135 pounds. So there it is. I almost dropped it. I'm only 135 pounds. And this bike is 400, I think full of gas is 460 something pounds, 460, 65, somewhere around there. Okay, that's it. So that's how you bring down a bike with homemade ramps. So what I could have done a little better was this ramp where I was walking. It could have been out a little bit further, probably like another 2 or 3 inches over. That's why I have to kick this side out a little bit. Earlier I had it like that. It was a bit too close, so I kicked it out a little bit. Obviously I couldn't do it in the back side. So as I went down, it got narrower and narrower, and it got kind of awkward. It got kind of awkward for me until I was able to put my feet on the ground, right here. So that's it. So that's how you unload a bike yourself. If you don't have a hand, and I'm a small guy. Again, I'm only 135 pounds, and this bike is like 3 times my weight. So I was able to handle it. So if you're like a big guy, like if you're a 200-pound guy, it'll be easier for you to bring it down this way. But this is how you do it by yourself, basically, with homemade ramps. Yeah. So that's it. Thanks for watching.